Welcome to the Clarksville Now forums for the November 2024 elections. My name is Chris Smith. I'm editor-in-chief for Clarksville Now, and today we feature U.S. Congress District 7. The candidates are Congressman Mark Green and Megan Barry. With us today is Representative Mark Green. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your qualifications to serve in Congress. Why are you running for office? Yeah.
Well, I've been in the job for 6 years. Mm-hmm. I actually became chairman of a committee in my third term, which you have to go back 70 years to find someone who became a chairman of a committee that quickly. Mm-hmm. So obviously I'm doing the job well. And I've passed historic legislation. I've done other historic things in the job. But my history, what my life experience really is what prepares me to help make decisions and be a fighter for the people. 24 years as an Army, doctor and as an infantry officer. I built a healthcare company. I understand healthcare very well. Built a company from scratch right here in Clarksville, Tennessee, and took it to do $212 million in annual revenue in just 8 years. Incredibly successful. And then I was a state senator, so I understand state government. So healthcare, military, business, world affairs. I have a breadth of experience that is really unparalleled, I think.
All right. Let's talk about some of the issues in the race. As you know, Congress has been trying to hammer out a solution on immigration for decades now. What are your priorities when it comes to immigration, and what do you think it'll take to reach some sort of a compromise?
Yeah, the first thing you have to do is secure the border, right? We have a massive influx of millions and millions of people, and the cartels have taken advantage of this open border that the Democrats all seem to want. They want a completely open border. Fentanyl has flooded into the country. It's killed hundreds of thousands of people. The cartels have exported their crime, linked up with the gangs in the U.S. And we have terrorists now, ISIS terrorists that were just captured in New York City, planning attacks that just came across the southern border, open border. So we have to close the border. That's step one. And then we need to sit down with Democrats and say, okay, look, here's the way the laws need to change. I mean, we have to fix things like farm visas, right? We have to address those issues. Those numbers need to go up. And some of these other work visas. We need to do merit-based immigration. We do. It's best for our country. It's best for the productivity of our country and thus the freedom of our country. So border security, and then sitting down with Democrats and figuring out what those negotiables are.
Okay. And so the Ukraine-Russia conflict, you've been heavily involved in this. What some thought was going to be just a brief engagement, and we talked about this a couple of years ago, has drawn out, into something much longer. And it's also become at times political. What do you think the United States should do in regards to Ukraine?
So we can't let Russia win. When authoritarian dictators talk to us about stuff, we should believe them. And he said Ukraine first, then Poland, then Latvia, the Baltic states. So we have got to stop Putin. At the same time, we can't be sending billions of dollars that are unaccountable. I mean, the transparency at the Department of Defense on what they're sending in this administration has been abysmal. And I voted yes on the very first package because it had a huge amount of money for the 101st that was deploying to Romania. You'll recall when this first happened, we sent a brigade to Romania, and so I voted for that. But I haven't voted for the aid since because they won't tell us exactly what they're sending. And I think that's unacceptable. If Congress is writing the check, we ought to know what's going. And we've sent a lot of money, a lot more than we probably needed to send. And so do we need to help? Yes. Do we need to stop Putin? Absolutely. But we've also got to motivate the European partners to do more because the conflagration in Europe can't go beyond Europe. We have to stop it, and we have to stop Putin. So, again, some support is needed. Transparency is critical. And, stop Putin.
Yeah. All right. Are you satisfied with the current healthcare situation in America, or do you see ways to improve it? And what would you like to see done?
Yeah, there's 1,000 different things. What Obamacare did is it reduced competition because a lot of the insurance companies got out of the marketplace, right? So where Obamacare came in, you wind up with one insurer, right? So the price went through the roof. And remember the massive increases in insurance? Obamacare was not the solution. Competition is the solution. And what government has to do is get out of the way and let the competitors work. Eye surgery, when it came out, was like $6,000 or $7,000 an eye. Now it's $600 an eye. That's because there's no government involvement in that process, and the ophthalmologists have had to compete for those procedures. right? So we need competition. That's what drives price down. When government gets involved, it always costs more. I'll give you an example. Government has a requirement that you can't have a freestanding ER if it's more than 35 miles from its referring hospital. Someone pulled that number 35 miles out of their, backside decades ago. And that 35-mile rule has kept those hospitals that have had to close from having freestanding emergency departments. Or critical access. They came up with this rule that said critical access, you can't get critical access if you're closer than 35 miles to a tertiary care center. Well, if you're a small volume ER in a small community that's 34.5 miles away, you can't get critical access, so you shut down. That's too much government that has hurt rural healthcare in America. And I have pushed 2 bills to fix both of those every year I've been in Congress. And I can't get the Democrats to support it because all they want to do is throw more money at the problem instead of actually being smart and using a business mind. I'm a healthcare guy. I ran a multi-million-dollar healthcare company. I know how to deliver care cheaply, and it's with competition and getting government out of the way.
Okay. So those are the main questions I had. Are there any other issues that are really important to you in this campaign, or any closing comments?
I think one thing you didn't mention, you kind of mentioned immigration, and I got the opportunity to talk about border. We have another border in this country that is porous right now and needs help, and it's our cyber border. We're getting attacked. Small communities are getting attacked all over this country. And so I just drafted one of our biggest issues. There are 3 big issues in cyber, but the number one is workforce. And I just passed out of my committee, I think it'll pass the floor, a cyber workforce bill. I've created an ROTC-like program for cybersecurity. So cyber professionals, young kids will now get a scholarship to go get a cybersecurity degree. They'll have to work for the government to pay it back, just like the military and the ROTC program. But then they can go into our country and fill those 500,000 vacant cybersecurity jobs. That's one biggie. The list is long on what needs to happen in Washington, but I think the other thing is just my Reagan O'Neill Club. I think I've talked to you about this before, where I'm trying to bring the sides together. I started it when I first got in Congress. I invited 8 Republicans, 8 Democrats. You can't talk politics. You just get to build relationships. It's now 30 Republicans, 30 Democrats. They come to my house. We have a little Irish whiskey in remembrance of Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan. And we're building relationships, and that needs to continue. So I'm looking forward to getting back in and doing that too. Again, I could go on, and you don't have time. But yeah, there's lots that needs to be fixed.
Yeah. Thank you, Congressman Green.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And thank you for stepping up as a community leader, as you have for many years. And a reminder that Election Day is November 5th. Early voting begins on October 16. Be sure to vote.